So I just wanted to let you know that I received a letter today from Michael Kersner and Graham McGregor in Ontario. I just wanted to reflect on that letter. It's a bit frustrating to receive a letter like that about concerns about community safety that casts aspersions on our commitment to combating violence and addressing community safety at the federal level. It's very concerning when I've expressed a lot of concerns to my provincial colleagues, and those concerns have been reiterated. They've been reiterated from people such as the Ontario Crown Attorneys Association, who have said that court resources and court staffing is a big problem in terms of addressing bail. It's a problem when I also hear from police officers, such as the Deputy Chief of York Police, who say that the conditions in courts are so crowded that there are not enough crowns to contest bail hearings. When I hear from the National Police Federation, who tell me that it's kind of fascinating that you're having such decisions rendered by adjudicators in Ontario, and those adjudicators are not legally trained. And I'm talking about justices of the peace in Ontario. They require zero legal training. That is not the case in Nova Scotia, which is an interesting sort of comparator. It's also frustrating when I read some of the decisions that are rendered about bail by people such as justices of the peace and provincial court judges, and they pointedly say that they are not denying bail, they are granting bail because the conditions are so deplorable at places like the Toronto South Detention Centre. All four of the items I've just listed for you are not matters that I'm concerned with. They're matters of the administration of justice that the province is concerned with. The province needs to look after courts, court staffing, Crown attorneys, and jails, and the conditions of jail. That's what we need to see, and we also need to see the data on the bail changes we passed with all-party support in the chamber right behind me about a year ago, and how those things are working out on the ground. We've not seen that data. A couple of interesting questions for all of you to ask my provincial counterparts might be, how many bail hearings are actually held versus how many times is bail actually being granted on consent? And secondly, how many times are Crowns who feel like a bail decision was made in error actually appealing or reviewing those bails? Those are statistics I would love to have, I'm sure you would love to have, and everyone watching right now.
Sont présentés là, de la part du gouvernement ontarien aujourd'hui, c'est un peu ça, là. Vous dites c'est à eux de faire le travail, là.
C'est à tous les gouvernements de faire le travail, mais le travail qui touche les provinces, c'est celui qui touche n'importe quelle province partout au Canada. Donc, par exemple, ce que j'ai mentionné en anglais, c'est que j'ai écouté les policiers de la région de Toronto, mais aussi les policiers d'une fédération nationale de police, the National Police Federation. Ce qu'ils ont souligné, c'est deux choses extrêmement importantes. Que, actuellement, en ce qui concerne mise en liberté sous caution, il y a actuellement le consentement qui est volontairement donné par le procureur de la Couronne à cause du fait qu'ils n'ont pas assez d'espace, assez de ressources pour contester la mise en liberté sous caution. Deuxième chose soulignée par la Fédération nationale, c'est que lorsqu'on touche une situation qui est assez précieuse comme liberté et la Charte canadienne, des fois, peut-être c'est utile d'avoir les personnes qui ont une formation en droit. Ça n'existe pas en Ontario. Les gens qui s'agissent comme juges de paix ne sont pas formés en droit de tout. L'autre chose qui était soulignée par les procureurs, l'Association des procureurs en Ontario, c'est qu'ils n'ont pas assez de procureurs actuellement. Et la quatrième chose qui était soulignée, c'est par les juges de paix eux-mêmes et les juges au niveau provincial. Ils ont souligné que de temps en temps, ils rejettent une application ils acceptent une application pour mise en liberté sous caution parce que les conditions dans les prisons il y a trop de personnes et les conditions sont déplorables. Toutes les quatre choses que j'ai soulignées, ça touche l'administration de la justice qui est gérée par les provinces. Donc, c'est à des provinces de régler ça. Pour nous, on traite le code criminel. On a déjà fait les amendements du code criminel et on attend toujours, un an après nos changements, pour les données provinciales de comment ça fonctionne. Deux questions très pertinentes de poser. Combien des questions de mise en liberté sous caution sont contestées par le procureur? On ne sait pas jusqu'à date combien sont contestées. Et deuxième chose qu'on ne sait pas, c'est que s'il y a peut-être une erreur, on ne sait pas jusqu'à date combien de fois il y a un appel ou une bail review qui est initiée par le procureur.
What's your reaction to the black class action lawsuit, $2.5 billion heading to court? What's the government's position and why are you fighting this?
There's active litigation I'm not going to comment on. It's not appropriate for the Attorney General to comment on active litigation that is continuing to unfold in court. You can see the government's position in terms of the court filings that have been made and the positions taken by the Council.
Is the government framing their issues as not systemic when their issues have been proven to be within the government?
Again, Ms., I'm not going to comment on litigation that is underway. The reason that I do not do that is because the words that come out of the Attorney General's mouth could be deemed to influence an ongoing process that would be inappropriate in a democracy. I can't comment on that. Merci beaucoup.
On bail reform, is your position here that there is nothing more for the federal government to do, and that it's up to the provinces now, that it's solely on them to enact changes to make things work?
Our position is that we are always looking to work cooperatively and collaboratively with provincial partners, including on bail reform. But what we need to see, if you're an evidence-based government, I need to see evidence. We passed bail reform about 10 months ago in the chamber right behind me, working together with provinces, including Ontario. What we asked at that time, and what I continue to ask today, and including in a letter I shared at the Federal Provincial Territorial Conference in Yellowknife 10 days ago, is that I need to see statistics about what's working and what is not. And what I absolutely need to see, and what all Ontarians need to see, is do we have enough courtrooms? Do we have enough crowns? Are those crowns contesting bail hearings? Are they appealing ones that they feel aggrieved for? And are the detention spaces sufficient? And are the conditions humane? Those are key questions that I need to have answered before we start to act. Merci.
Allez-vous contester la
À la proposition des conservateurs, parce que c'est un peu dans ce que vous avez fait vous aussi, annuler la TPS vous aussi, vous avez fait ça.
C'est OK si j'ai commencé en anglais, juste pour c'est difficile toujours. Yeah, look, so I've seen what was proposed today, and it's neat to see that there's some inspiration from our idea that you can actually take GST off housing to get more built. But there's a fundamental problem with what was proposed today, and it's very telling about the Conservative Leader's strategy going forward across a suite of programs. He wants to fund the program he's talking about by cutting the programs that are actually going to deliver housing for middle-class and low-income families. Every time I look at what his policy proposals entail, whether it's housing, whether it's healthcare, whether it's affordability, it's just cut, 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 cut. In this instance, he wants to take away the programs that are making it easier to build homes and making it possible to build homes by building the infrastructure that they need. But look at healthcare. Wants to cut the dental program. Wants to cut programs that are delivering birth control for free to Canadian women. To cut medicine for people who live with diabetes. When you actually look at affordability, he's got a history as long as my arm about trying to gut seniors' pensions, with changing the age of eligibility for OAS. He won't stop talking about payroll taxes to undermine the Canada Pension Plan. The Canada Child Benefit is something he opposed. You look, whether it's seniors' pensions, interest on student loans, the supports to help families with the cost of raising kids, it is just cut, cut, cut. That's not the way you're going to get more homes built.
Maisons ont été construites jusqu'à maintenant avec ces deux fonds, with these two funds? Combien de logements ont été construits jusqu'à maintenant?
Oui, avec le fonds pour accélérer la construction de logements, l'estimé de la communauté, ce n'est pas l'estimé du gouvernement fédéral, mais le total est comme 750 000 unités de logement par tout notre pays pour les... oui, avec le plan pour la communauté, quand j'ai conclu une entente avec la municipalité a inclus un estimé du nombre de logements avec un permis après en 10 années. Et le nombre total pour le Canada, avec la première tranche des fonds, est 750 000 unités de logement par tout notre pays. Avec les fonds pour l'infrastructure, l'estimé aujourd'hui est le sujet pour la discussion avec la communauté, parce que le programme va s'ouvrir le 31 octobre, la prochaine semaine. C'est difficile parce que les ententes n'est pas conclu maintenant.
I take that you would not want the housing accelerator to be cut, but would you support the idea of removing the GST on new home builds like the Conservatives are proposing?
So we're looking at a number of different models to make sure that we create opportunities for people to get into the housing market in a way that is more affordable than it has been more recently. There's a number of different ways that you can do that. We've already made the move on amortizations by stretching out the time that a person can pay off their mortgage and changing the insured mortgage limit to make it easier for people to qualify qualify given the rising price of homes. We want to be careful, though, that we don't necessarily create a program that enriches someone who may be buying their 6th or 7th home through a corporate vehicle, for example, for private investment services, and asking low-income and middle-income families to pay for that kind of a tax cut. So we are looking at additional measures we can put on the table to make it easier for people to qualify. But my first read of what's been pitched today is that there may be some elements that make sense, but there are other elements that could be deeply troubling.
He wants to cut the Housing Accelerator Fund and the Housing Infrastructure Fund, and using that argument that there are no homes built, you have nothing to show for these programs. What do you make of that attack line? What's your response to Pierre Poilievre?
So, first of all, I wouldn't accept the premise that those are the only 2 programs. I think they're talking about other programs as well. He said previously, it's been reported on record, that he doesn't believe that the government has a role in the housing business altogether. The precise quote, I think it was in the Times Colonist, if you want to pull the specific wording that he used. He's got a history, when he was actually the minister responsible for CMHC, of making severe cuts to affordable housing programs. He has no interest, seemingly, in dealing with any issue around encampments unless to show up with a video crew so he can treat the people who are living there as props for likes on his accounts. The realistic prospect that a Conservative government would actually invest in the kind of housing that helps vulnerable people or helps more middle-class families get into the market, given his long history of opposing those kinds of measures, is just simply not realistic. Sorry, I want to finish the response because I didn't address your specific point around the Housing Accelerator Fund. I will stay for a minute. That's bogus, completely. Look at the deals that we've actually achieved and the measures that have already come to benefit. We've witnessed since September of last year the largest upzoning in the history of Canada. There is hardly a big city in this country that hasn't adopted more permissive zoning, that hasn't moved to digital permits or is in the process of moving there now. What we're seeing right now is a lot of the red tape has been completely cut to make it easier and faster to build homes. If you want to now go back to municipalities and pull that money out, that would make no sense. And I can't help but think there's Conservative members of Parliament who are now campaigning on a commitment to take tens of millions of dollars away from their communities, presumably raising property taxes on their constituents to pay for it, when they wouldn't actually get the benefit from deals that we have already reached. I think about Kelowna. It was a little more than a year last week. I was there with $31.5 million, and there's a lot of the cities that they represent aren't even eligible for the programs that he's talking about putting forward. So from my perspective, these funds are making a difference. They're going to have a bigger difference in the future, and to cut them now would be nonsensical.
In Nova Scotia, the Progressive Conservative leader says he needs a fresh new mandate so he can get a better deal, better negotiations with Ottawa, and he's using it as a justification for his snap election called ahead of his set election date. Just wondering your views on that, please, in English and French for Radio Canada.
OK. J'ai commencé en anglais et je vais essayer en français aussi. Mais just to begin, I'm going to leave it to the Premier and to the provincial government to determine when they're going to go to the polls. I do find it curious that there was, as his first act as Premier, a decision to establish a fixed election date. You could reasonably argue whether that's a good or bad idea, but to have made that first move and now to go at a time that he perceives to be electorally advantageous is an interesting way to kick off the campaign. But the whole argument around needing a stronger mandate, when you actually have a majority already, is one piece. But when you layer on top of the fact that there are hundreds of millions of dollars on offer right now that the federal government, and sometimes me personally in my capacity as Minister of Infrastructure, have put on the table, it betrays the idea that there's a larger majority needed in order to negotiate. I look at the $325 million that we approved and have put on offer to deal with the Sheehan Isthmus, asking New Brunswick and Nova Scotia to share the other half. I look at the money that we put on the table for the National School Food Program, and the province seemingly has charged ahead, which is a great thing, but seems not interested in taking money, but would rather have Nova Scotian taxpayers pay for it. I look at the programs that we're working on now to significantly scale up the childcare spaces that Nova Scotia has and will have in the future if they continue to work alongside us. I've had the opportunity to work alongside the Premier for the entirety of my career as a Member of Parliament. I've always got along perfectly, despite our first public disagreement over the Sheehan Isthmus recently. But the argument that there's a stronger mandate required when, in fact, there are hundreds of millions of dollars available now that they only need to say yes to makes that argument a curious one, to say the least. En français, je vais essayer. C'est pour le gouvernement provincial de déclarer le moment précis pour l'élection, mais selon moi, l'argument n'est pas plus fort quand vous réalisez beaucoup des opportunités pour obtenir les investissements fédéraux maintenant. Par exemple, sur le projet comme le Chignac-Isthmus, il y a 325 millions de dollars maintenant qui ont approuvé, mais la province dit non. Il y a des programmes pour soutenir la nourriture dans l'école pour les étudiants. Et maintenant, les provinces a avancé seulement avec les provinces. C'est possible pour recevoir des autres investissements fédéraux. C'est une situation similaire avec les garderies, avec les investissements fédéraux aussi. Il y a beaucoup d'opportunités pour collaborer, mais je pense que le gouvernement provincial a un intérêt de commencer l'élection plus vite, mais je suis ici pour collaborer après l'élection pour assurer la Nouvelle-Écosse à recevoir le juste part pour ces programmes.
Sur le principe, là, parce que je comprends que vous ne voulez pas qu'on coupe les fonds que vous avez mis en place, mais sur le principe avancé par Pierre Poilievre de couper la TPS là, sur les nouveaux logements de moins d'1 million de dollars, est-ce que vous êtes d'accord avec cette idée-là?
Ce n'est pas juste le TPS qui il veut couper.
L'annonce aujourd'hui, sur couper la TPS.
J'ai considéré des possibilités différentes pour identifier la meilleure façon pour améliorer l'abordabilité du logement partout dans notre pays. Quand le gouvernement fédéral coupait le TPS pour les nouveaux projets locatifs, c'est une bonne chose et la construction a avancé plus rapidement. Mais quand j'ai regardé les détails, ce n'est pas une bonne idée pour couper des autres programmes, pour payer pour ce programme, parce qu'il y a la classe moyenne et les personnes qui sont plus vulnérables qui souffrent les conséquences. Mais aussi, c'est essentiel pour comprendre la personne qui a obtenu le bénéfice et la personne qui payait pour ce programme. Quand j'ai regardé immédiatement, ce matin, le proposal de M. Poilievre, c'est possible pour la classe moyenne, les personnes qui sont plus vulnérables, pour payer, pour augmenter le taux d'impôt, pour payer un bénéfice pour la personne qui a 5 ou 6 maisons maintenant pour les raisons des investissements, pas juste pour une place pour leur famille. Notre gouvernement considérait des autres possibilités pour avancer des mesures pour améliorer l'abordabilité du logement pour les familles, mais c'est essentiel, selon moi, pour identifier les programmes qui soutiennent la classe moyenne et la personne qui est plus vulnérable.
Okay. Just in English.
Sorry. Okay. English. I don't want to be late for question period.
No,
sorry. Just in the same program. So we will be looking at and have been looking at a range of different program possibilities to assure we're moving forward in a way that is going to best address affordability for people who are trying to get into the housing market. But we need to make sure we understand who is paying and who is receiving a benefit. It's unacceptable to me to advance a program if the result is going to be that middle-class families and low-income families pay more. If the benefit of the program is then opened up to the investor class who might have 5 or 6 homes and suddenly gets a tax cut paid for by ordinary Canadians. So we're going to continue to do the work to identify the best path forward to improve affordability in the housing market, to get more people into the market, but we're certainly not going to finance a program by cutting the programs that exist today that are going to deliver more housing for low and middle-class families. Thanks very much. Sorry, I've got to run because I don't want to miss a question. If you catch me, I'm always on the way out. I'll have to chat.
Je peux vous demander si de couper la TPS sur les nouveaux logements, c'est une bonne façon d'améliorer l'accès à la propriété?
C'est pas une mauvaise idée, mais si pour faire ça, il faut abolir un fonds d'accélération de construction de logements, c'est comme déshabiller Pierre pour habiller Jean. C'est-à-dire que, est-ce que les gens vont vraiment être gagnants au bilan? C'est ce qu'on se demande, là.
Trouvez-vous que ces fonds-là, ils livrent les résultats auxquels on les attend?
Le fonds d'accélération de construction de logements, c'est quelque chose que nous, au NPD, on avait demandé et c'est quelque chose qui fonctionne assez bien, même si la stratégie globale fonctionne assez mal. Donc, on est un peu prudent en ce moment avec la mesure qui est présentée par M. Poilievre. C'est bon? if you cut the tax for first owners, buyers, that's not a bad idea. But if to do that you have to scrap a program that is building affordable houses, maybe it's not super good for at the end of the day.
Reaction, Matthew, to the revelations that taxpayer accounts have been hacked tens of thousands, and that and Parliament wasn't informed until recently.
Yeah, first and foremost, as an MP who deals with helping seniors and vulnerable people on fixed income file their taxes, that tax filing has significant implications. So for the 31,000 people, it could potentially have significant impacts on their ability to access old age security, their ability to access GIS. It's possible that they could be now listed as fraudulent activity and have to go through the whole process of clearing their name with credit reports. But it begs the question of the role and the leadership of the department heads, certainly of the minister. We have some significant questions for the minister. We, as New Democrats, believe that the government has a duty to disclose when it comes to privacy breaches of this nature. My colleague and critic for the CRA, Nikki Ashton, has called for a public inquiry. I've put a notice of motion for this to be studied and to call as witnesses the minister, the senior officials to answer to the Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics Committee. This is something we take very seriously. We, at this point, have no idea about the cost implications. We have no idea about the impacts on the 31,000 people. And moreover, I think that there's also very real questions that we have with the Privacy Commissioner, because we do feel that there ought to have been a duty to disclose regardless of the reporting period. We feel that that office should have been ringing the alarm bells to let the 31,000 Canadians know that their information, their very private financial information, had been breached.
There was reports about H&R Block data being breached and third-party filers hacking into Canadians' accounts, but the public wasn't told. What's your reaction to that?
That's egregious. You know, from our perspective, there's a duty to disclose when these things happen. We believe that all citizens have the right to have data sovereignty, to have, you know, some kind of protection of their information on third parties. And I think, you know, at a higher level, it also begs the question about, in my opinion, the need for these third-party H&R blocks to do basic tax filings, which is why we've always called for automatic tax filings to help prevent some of these types of situations where these breaches occur with private filers. Clearly, you know, and we don't know yet where the breach happened, but if it's the case that it happened on the side of the private corporations, then that would, for us, that would unpack a whole host of other questions.
One final question. Why is it important that Canadians know about these kinds of breaches?
Well, again, first off, you know, if your data has been breached and somebody has redirected your return, there's also a scenario where if you're a senior, your OAS, your GIS could also be missing. And as somebody, you know, in our office in Hamilton Centre, when we're dealing with people on fixed incomes, we're doing tax filings in the thousands for people, and we know what happens when they get cut off. This is income that they count on. They're on fixed incomes, and when it's not filed properly, or worse, when it's being stolen, then we're literally talking about vulnerable seniors, people on disability, people on fixed incomes, not being able to pay rent, not being able to buy food. This is money they rely on. It's part of what they need to survive, and we're very concerned at the disruptions this might have caused them.
Just one local question. You share office space with Sarah Jama. Are you concerned that Merritt Stiles is not letting her run as an NDP in the next election?
I do share office with Sarah Jama, and I am concerned. I do understand that there's a process in place for a review. I know that locally we are very hopeful that there's a way to find an opportunity to allow a fair process to take place where the appropriate candidate that best represents the interests of Hamilton Centre. Certainly the first go-around, that was Sarah Jama. We know that there's lots of support there for Sarah, and we hope that cooler heads prevail, and there's a really good democratic process that allows for her to re-enter into the party.
Mr. Fragiskatos, do you think the Green took long enough to reflect on what he heard at caucus?
I think he heard many things at caucus. There wasn't only a reflection that he was going to take on his future, but certainly how we confront the next few weeks and months against Poilievre, and that's, I think, when you talk about a reflection, I think you have to keep that in mind too.
But folks were certainly asking him to reflect on his own leadership, and he seemed to decide that relatively quickly, right?
He took a choice, and we're going to have to go forward now with a caucus that's united. So that's my focus.
People say they don't feel part of the team, though.
What's that?
Some members of your team say they just don't feel like they're part of that team.
Well, I'm not going to tell members how to feel, but certainly there's an opportunity here to unite. There's no other way. We've got a guy that wants to cut pensions, cut the Canada Child Benefit, has no real plan on housing, despite what he said today. And there's many other examples I could give, but climate change in particular, all these things. We need a united caucus to deal with those issues, and we'll be united.
Should there be a vote here? The Prime Minister says he's staying on. The deadline was today. What happened?
That's good.
What happened now?
Well, we just need to focus on continuing to put Canadians first, and that's what I'll do for the people of Sault Ste. Marie and Canada.
What do you think he took long enough to reflect on what he did at caucus?
I think, you know what, we had a great discussion, as always, at every caucus meeting, and I'm certain that the Prime Minister has taken in all considerations, and he's being the leader that he is.
Is this the secret ballot?
Yeah, is this the end of the issue, or should there be a secret ballot here?
I'm fine. I support the Prime Minister. Sault Ste. Marie has seen record-breaking, historic investments in the steel industry. We fought back against Trump's 232s. He's always had the workers' backs, and so therefore I have his back.
What about division? What about unity and division in caucus?
Look, I only know what I know, and that is that we have a great team. Look, I know where we are in the standings right now, right? But we're all making the playoffs, right? And that is the election. And the last 3 playoffs, we've won, and we will win this one as well. Too much at stake. We got to continue to grow, and we can't slide back. Thank you.
How do you keep that growth going, though, to bring up sports metaphors? Like, if the defense is saying Connor McDavid's got to go because the Oilers aren't doing great right now, how do you get the defense back on side here?
Well, to your point, Trudeau is Connor McDavid, and he's doing quite well. And, you know, the last 3 playoffs, the elections, we've won. And I'm part of that team, and I plan on skating hard and playing a good game and winning it for the people of the Sioux in Canada. Thank you.
Do you think the Prime Minister took enough time to reflect on his decision to stay on?
I think so.
Yeah, you're
I do. I am.
Should there be a secret ballot vote in caucus to
No.
kind of put this to the test?
No.
What needs to happen
No.
now? The Prime Minister said he's saying today was the deadline that those MPs gave him. What needs to happen next?
Well, same thing that's been happening. You know, we're a party that's been galvanized, and we got work to do. You know, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's supply chains, healthcare, and the list goes on. We have work to do, and that's what we're prepared to do.
What are you going to do about MPs within your own caucus who really do feel the Prime Minister needs to leave?
You know, listen, we're a team, and regardless if it's business, whether it's politics, whether it's any parts of our lives, you know, we have these blips, and we get by them. We turn the page.
But we're hearing that members of your team don't feel like they're actually part of that team. Does something need to change to
Well, I haven't heard that.
what we're hearing?
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
Well, I haven't heard it.
Do you think anything should be done to bring them back on side?
No, I think we just carry on with the business that we're doing. You know, let's face it, we're busy. We've had a lot of work that we've done since 2015, and we're going to continue to do that. The bottom line right now, our focus right now, not getting distracted by situations that you folks talk about every day. And by the way, I appreciate that. You're doing your job. But at the end of the day, we're focused on one thing, and that's making sure that Canadians are being taken care of.
What's your message to MPs who still are not happy behind closed doors? They do feel the Prime Minister needs to leave.
Well, again, I haven't heard that. You know, we're moving on as a team, and that's yeah. Well, but at the end of the day, we're a team. You know, regardless of what we hear on the street, whether we, you know, where you hear it. The bottom line is that we're a team, and we're going to carry on as a team. You know, at the end of the day, again, we're focused on Canadians, and that's what we're going to continue to be focused on.
Has this hurt your government's work, though? I mean, you say that media is bringing it
Not
up,
at all.
but that's because you're
Not at all. You know, individually, we all have our own files, and we're not being distracted by this. Myself, in particular, who I can speak for, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, I'm focused on my files and making sure that both my riding and as well the country are being dealt with and being taken care of as we work every day. You know, that's what we're doing.
There's another deadline tomorrow that the Blocs have put forward for your party. What are you expecting to happen tomorrow?
Well, I can't speculate on that. Not right now. So, stop me tomorrow. You guys have a great day. Take care.
Not Wednesday, but maybe subsequently, depending on the answers we get to the questions.
So it sounds like you're saying this question isn't fully settled. Do you worry about how conclusive that is, that it just hinders them?
Well, you know, of course, to the extent that people are paying attention, and let's face it, inside our big echo chamber here, of course we're all paying attention. Back home, to be honest with you, very few people are talking about any of this.
But I mean, within your team, this question still hanging
Mm-hmm.
Do you worry about the effect that has for your...
Oh yeah, of course I do. But we haven't got the answer yet. So we have the one answer. He intends to stay. Okay, he's the leader until the day he's not. But the other answer, what are we going to do about the fact that his approval ratings are so low, and what are we going to do next to build on what we've accomplished so far? What offering do we have to Canadians to justify them giving us another term in office? I got to go in for insult hour now, so I'll catch you there. Never. No.
I wasn't involved in writing I wasn't part of the 24 that wrote the letter, so I'll let my colleagues speak for themselves. But I've said before, I'll say it again, that if the Prime Minister chooses to stay on, which all indications are that he will, I'll support him, and I'll support our Liberal team, because at the end of the day, the alternative of Mr. Poilievre, he's not a moderate Conservative. He doesn't represent the type of progressive conservatism that has existed in my riding for a long time. So I'll be with our Liberal team.
What needs to happen now?
Look, I think at the end of the day, the Prime Minister committed in caucus to reflecting on the feedback that he heard. Obviously, there was some feedback about his time as the leader of the party. Some was also about some change that colleagues were seeking. I won't go into too many more details, but I think he committed to being able to lay out a vision for that, and we'll see if that comes to pass.
Are you expecting answers on that today? What changes are going to be potentially happening?
I'm not the one that's holding a deadline here, so I'm excited to go into question period today. Had a great weekend back in my constituency, engaging with my constituents, and trying to be able to hopefully we get an impasse here. One of the things that I think is important that most Canadians don't know is the Conservatives continue to filibuster their own motion on a question of privilege. We've been now, almost 3 weeks, and Conservatives continue to actually stall the activities of the House. I think that's important too. We have to be able to get beyond that, and hopefully that's something you can ask the Conservative members of Parliament when they intend to do that.
What do you personally think needs to change when it comes to turning around the approval ratings for the Prime Minister?
Look, I've given my advice to the Prime Minister privately. That's where it'll remain. And at the end of the day, I think we've done some really good things as a government. Yes, change is going to be important. I think at the end of the day, it's about trying to show that we have a pathway and a vision for the future. The world is in a heck of a place right now. When you think about it, there has been a lot happening around the world from a foreign policy sense, in the sense that we have a war in Eastern Europe, certainly a war and huge geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. I think the Prime Minister, as we get closer to the next election, will have to lay out what his vision is for the country and why we're the best vehicle to be able to move forward. I believe that, but we need to make sure we're convincing Canadians. And I really appreciate again, that's his choice. He's probably been reflecting all along. So I saw some of my colleagues said that they would have liked to have seen it longer. But again, I've been very clear that it's his choice to make it. And some of the colleagues that did say what they said in caucus also said that it's their view that it's his choice to make as well. So I do need to get to question period, though, on that side.
Do you want to see a secret vote in your caucus?
Look, we are going to need everyone on board in the next election. We've got a great team. I think it's around 153 colleagues right now. And so obviously there's some colleagues who won't be reoffering for their own reasons. Some have served for almost a decade in public service, so you wouldn't expect everyone necessarily to reoffer. But we've got a great team, and we're going to need everyone on board. And people are entitled to diversity of opinion. I mean, it's interesting. I saw Sean Fraser share a graphic today about the fact that there are Conservative members in this House that are actually not allowed to get up and speak if they don't actually parrot the points that are being asked of them on these slogans. And it's actually cheapens the argument, is the way that Sean made it. So look, I think we've got a great team. We need to be able to move forward on that.
Thanks. His choice to make, and it's pretty clear on my constituents in the next election.
Have you moved on, or are you part of some? Do you think more needs to be done in order to try to convince the Prime Minister differently?
I don't think he can be convinced.
Why not?
Ask him. He's convinced he's the right guy. I think he's getting bad advice.
Do you think others right now, what are some of the things people are talking about in terms of trying to get him to listen to their message? Those that want him to leave?
There's an overall level of frustration, quite frankly. But some are the same as me. Every day that we spend giving interviews on internal party turmoil is a day that we're losing in terms of delivering our message on the good work that we're doing and trying to make the case for carrying on. So that's my view. Many hold it. and others are completely frustrated.
So you're moving on, so it's really an individual decision right now.
Yep.
There's no group of 24 people trying to decide
Correct.
what we're going to do. This is now broken down to individual.
That's correct. Yes.
Mr.
That's
Casey,
right.
do you think the Prime Minister is relying too heavily on his inner circle, and does he need to do something to bring back those who have spoken out against his leadership on side?
Probably. I frankly don't know who he's listening to. I know who he's not listening to.
Would you start voting against the government?
No. But why would we do something like that and give it to Pierre Poilievre on a silver platter? It would be a disaster for my part of the country, and I think probably the country as a whole. We're not in a good situation here, but a Poilievre prime ministership would definitely be worse.
And you had mentioned last week that you want to see a mechanism for a secret vote. Do you know if there's a few more colleagues have joined you in that? Is that something that could start happening in the next few weeks, do you think?
I doubt it.
Deadline, and the Prime Minister says he's staying. He's made it very clear. What are your feelings?
Well, this is an important conversation, and many people express themselves. It's an ongoing conversation, I'm sure, and there's a lot to think about from last caucus meeting.
But you mentioned that the other day. What have you taken away from it at this point?
You know, what I've taken away is I heard a lot of colleagues, and they had a lot to say, to share from their constituents, and that was very thought-provoking.
Do you think there should be a secret ballot?
On that, the secret ballot is something that's floating in the air. It's something that is I think I would put this to rest. A secret ballot will put this to rest, and we need to have a finality to this. And I think that would help us as a party to move beyond this. Thank you so much.
Given the fact that there are quite a number of MPs, quite a number of Liberals and Canadians who feel that someone else should lead the Liberal Party in the next election, I think the way to move forward for the sake of party unity is to hold a secret ballot vote. I think that's the best thing for the party and for the country. I think a secret ballot vote is something that could unify caucus, unify the party, but also a secret ballot allows members of Parliament to vote without fear of repercussions or consequences. And so what I would say is that, and I think the focus should be on whether Justin Trudeau should lead us into the next election. I think that the Prime Minister and his team have said on a number of occasions in different ways that they believe that the Prime Minister enjoys the support of the vast majority of caucus, and I think that to me that suggests that he would have no concerns. He shouldn't have any concerns about putting it to a secret ballot vote, because again, that allows us to move forward, unified, and put this behind us.
Your party doesn't have that mechanism, so how would you do that? It's not like the Conservatives who have the Reform Act.
Look, I'm not going to get into the weeds of
exactly
the mechanics.
But it's possible.
Absolutely, it's possible. Absolutely, it's a standard, democratic process. That's how MPs elect the Speaker. It's how I got elected. Constituents, voters get to go to the ballot box and vote without fear of consequence or reprisal, and to have their conscience heard. So I think to me it's a process that we use in our democracy all the time, and I think it's the best way to again move forward in a united way.
Do you think the Prime Minister should go?
Again, I'm not going to talk about what I said in caucus, but I will say that I think the process forward has to be a secret ballot. That's the way to move this forward.
In a group of 24 people, are they asking for a secret ballot?
Sorry?
In a group of 24 people asking for a secret ballot?
I can't hear you.
In a group of 24 people who are part of that letter, are they asking for a secret ballot?
I'm speaking only for myself. I'm only speaking for myself.
Quelle est la prochaine étape pour vous et les autres députés dissidents?
À mon avis, il y a beaucoup de députés, il y a des libéraux, des Canadiens à travers le pays qui pensent que quelqu'un d'autre devrait nous mener, être notre chef dans la prochaine élection. Donc je pense que l'approche qu'on devrait avoir, c'est un secret ballot. C'est un vote où les gens peuvent voter, les députés peuvent voter confidentiellement, sans avoir peur des conséquences. Je pense que c'est la meilleure façon d'unifier le caucus.
Mais on est lundi, M. Trudeau a dit non, je reste. Alors c'est quoi que vous allez faire concrètement?
Écoutez, c'est ce que je propose. Je ne parle pas au nom de quelqu'un d'autre. Je parle dans mon...
Are you considering sitting as an independent?
I won't speculate on what's going to happen into the future. Like right now, my focus is on making sure that we unify the party, unify the caucus, and that we beat Pierre Poilievre. And to me, a secret ballot vote would allow us to do that, to bring the party. It's not just about the caucus, it's about the party across the country. And I think bringing everybody together is so critical. And that's what we need to do. And this would be the way to do
Allez-vous le demander mercredi? Allez-vous le demander au caucus mercredi? C'est votre secret?
Je ne vais pas promettre ce que je vais dire.
dire au caucus.
Est-ce que vous aimeriez le demander, disons?
On va voir. Les détails, le mécanisme, le processus, c'est quelque chose qui n'est pas important en ce moment, à mon avis. Ce qui est important en ce moment, à mon avis, c'est important, c'est qu'on demande un secret ballot.
Do you think the Prime Minister and those around him are listening to MPs?
I can't speculate on that. You'd have to ask them about that.
Well, how do you feel though?
Well, there have been many times when I've, as an MP, where I've definitely felt listened to. So, but on this particular matter, which I suspect is what you're asking about, that you'd have to ask them if they feel that that's the case. I would say that that in light of the importance of the conversation that we had on Wednesday in caucus, and the importance of the issue, the significance of that conversation, and what caucus colleagues had to say, my expectation was that the Prime Minister would take a few days to reflect on what MPs had to say. So if what we heard from the Prime Minister on Thursday, which was less than 24 hours after that meeting, is his decision, then, in my view, then he didn't take enough time to reflect on that.
For clarity, that's secret ballot with caucus or with the party and membership in general?
What I believe should happen is a secret ballot vote in caucus, which would be on the subject of should Justin Trudeau lead us into the next election.
What would it take to make that vote actually happen? Would it be like majority support, or just something you could go to say like the House leader, where they're like we can say we want to get this done?
I think I won't get into the mechanics today. I mean, there's obviously going to have to be a process and a planning out of it. I'm not here stipulating what those exact rules should be and the timing and the mechanics are. I just think that the core issue for me is that we build caucus unity, party unity, that we go defeat Pierre Poilievre, and I think to do that we need to be able to address the question of that many people are raising, which is their belief that perhaps someone else should lead us into the next election. I think we need to address that. I think the best way to address that is through a secret ballot vote. Again, it ensures that members of Parliament who are voting can vote their conscience without fear of consequence or reprisals.
Is there a benchmark that you'd want to see from the Prime for support? Like, does it have to hit, let's say, 80%, or is it 50% plus one?
Yeah, again, I won't get into the specifics of that. I think what's important is that caucus members have a chance to express their conscience, express their point of view on this matter without facing consequence or reprisals, that we bring unity and that we put this behind us and move forward and beat Pierre Poilievre. So that's my focus. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Should be a vote in your caucus to decide Mr. Trudeau's future?
No.
Do you support Mr. Trudeau? Do you think he took enough time to reflect about his future?
Absolutely, yes. I support him 100%.
And he talked about the meeting on Thursday, that he's saying is one day enough time to fully reflect?
Well, I think we had a robust discussion. He listened to everybody and he made his opinion very clear, and caucus stands with him.
Do you think what needs to happen next moving forward? Today was that deadline that some MPs imposed on you.
Well, we'll have a robust discussion again on Wednesday, and we'll be able to discuss that in our own caucus. It's not a public matter. I think it's something that the caucus discusses themselves, but I think some of the members have already said the matter is over, and I think we're moving on, working on the hard work, which is helping Canadians get better and improve their economic condition.
Others say it's not over, it's just the start. So what do you say to them?
I say they should remember which party they are a part of and how they won.
$1 an hour for the House to run. Where'd you get that number?
It was a figure that I'd heard when we were doing our all-night voting marathon back in December. I'd heard other MPs mention it, so it was off the top of my head. So it was kind of a ballpark figure, but I mean, the fact remains that it does cost many tens of thousands of dollars an hour to run this place and over a day. And right now we've had 3 weeks of a Conservative filibuster, so the Conservatives are footing that bill. The taxpayers are footing that bill.
And have you any hopes that it'll end anytime soon, or?
That's a conversation amongst the House leaders, and I wish them well.
Thank you.
Thanks.